Hello. Today we are going to learn about the components of automobile. Components of automobile consist of the superstructure, which is nothing but body, vehicle body is called the superstructure, and the chassis portion. The chassis portion consists of the basic structure. The basic structure comes comes frame, suspension, axle, and wheel. Now frame may have suppose longitudinal members and cross members. Like suppose this is a longitudinal member, it may have cross members, okay, transverse members, and it may have cross members like this. Okay, so conventional type of chassis here I have drawn. Okay, then suspension system, as the vehicle needs suspension system can be of spring type, leaf spring, and some others kind thing here. Thus, this mounted here. Suppose your axle, these wheels are mounted on that, and body is supported by this suspension system. Then axle, the power is transmitted to the axles again, and from axle to the rear wheel. So the diagram I have drawn here is the front engine, rear wheel drive, you can say. So engine gives power to the rear wheel through transmission system, that is clutch, gearbox, universal joint, propeller shaft to the differential gearbox, you can say, and from differential gearbox to the axles, and on this axle these wheels are mounted. Okay, then as already mentioned, the wheels which are mounted on the axle, these are the front axle and this is the rear axle. Okay, so basic structure consists of the frame. Frame has longitudinal as well as this transverse members, you can say, and cross members. Then suspension system, then axles, okay, and wheels. Power unit, which is nothing but engine here. This is called the power unit. Okay, so where the power is generated by burning the fuel, either petrol or diesel or other fuels, you can say. That is called the power unit. Then transmission system. So power which is generated at the engine is transmitted from engine to the either rear wheel or front wheel. So that portion is called the transmission system. Here power is transmitted through this clutch, gearbox, then universal joint, the propeller shaft to the differential gearbox, you can say. And from the differential gearbox, the axles are rotated, and on this axles wheels are mounted, which gives power from engine to this rear wheel. This portion is called the transmission system. Then control portion or control unit, you can say, under which we are having two important parts, that is the braking and steering. This whole vehicle need to be controlled, and the control is done by the steering. Suppose I want to move this vehicle on the right hand side or left hand side of the straight. Okay, so it's done by the steering system. And if you want to control the speed or to stop the vehicle, we need to have a braking. So brakes can be disc type or drum type, and can be controlled by pneumatically, hydraulically. Okay. So and then in addition to this portion, we are having additional things are called the auxiliary. So under auxiliaries you may have mirrors, okay, and any other things like AC unit and all that. So that comes under the auxiliary. Okay. So the basic structure to control, so this portion is called the chassis. Okay. So this is called the chassis. Okay, so chassis is just not the frame. Okay, so this chassis consists of the frame, suspension system, axle, wheels, and power unit, as well as transmission unit and control unit. Okay, so this whole portion is called the axle. Okay, so superstructure is the body. So superstructure plus chassis you can call it the vehicle. Okay, and auxiliaries are the additional things, you can say. Okay, so superstructure, basic structure, frame, suspension, axle, wheels, power unit, transmission system, and control is having braking and steering, and auxiliaries like mirror. Now we are going to learn about the functions of chassis. Okay, so chassis need to perform many important functions. The first important thing is it supports the vehicle weight. Okay. You can say self weight. Chassis itself has its own weight, because all the heavy parts like engine, transmission system, suspension, okay, the differential gearbox, So all these parts has its own weight, okay, and the superstructure weight as well as auxiliary weight. So this weight need to be supported by chassis. So chassis takes all this weight, okay. So that is also function of chassis, you can say. The second important thing, as there are many passengers, okay, if it is a passenger vehicle or if it is a goods vehicle, the weight of the material, you can say. So it has to take the passenger weight, you can say, if you are talking about the passenger vehicle here, like car. Then, as these vehicles are moving on the rough surfaces, okay, rough roads, and there are the this, okay, so road conditions, due to that, lot many trestles are being developed, and that trestles are being taken care by those chassis. Okay, so it has to take the trestles due to the road condition, wavy road conditions, rough road conditions, you can say, and due to that, trestles comes on the chassis, and it has to take care of that. Then trestles due to braking and acceleration. Suppose if you, the drivers or the drivers apply the brake, okay, at that time you can say all the weight is moves towards the front side, you can say, and if it is accelerate the vehicle, the weight shift to the rear side, okay. So braking trestles comes due to the braking and acceleration comes on this chassis, and chassis has to take care of that. Then we should have sufficient space, okay. If you think about the vehicle, okay, like goods vehicle, so this chassis we need to provide a sufficient space for the carrying goods, or sufficient space for the space for the mountings, you can say, because there are so many things here. If you take the examples here, the chassis need to accommodate the transmission system, suspension system, steering system, differential gearbox, okay. All these things are need to be accommodated, and we should have enough space for the goods as well as the passengers, you can say. So therefore, what is the function of chassis here? You can say chassis should have the space for these mountings, okay, all the mountings which are necessary for the vehicle, you can say, vehicle to run, to provide adequate capacity to steer the vehicle. So this whole vehicle need to be steered, okay, and that is also important function of the chassis, you can say. It should steer, okay. So it may possible that if the vehicle is very long, okay, and it's not possible to control that vehicle by steering. So to provide the capacity to steer the vehicle is also function of chassis. And the most important thing, as we know, it need to isolate the passengers from, suppose if it is a passenger vehicle, I need to isolate these passengers and road, means it should have a proper suspension system. So these are the important functions of chassis: to take the weight of vehicle, okay, it should take the weight of vehicle, it should take the weight of passengers or goods, I will say here. Trestles due to road conditions, then trestles due to braking and acceleration, okay. If you apply brake here, you can say the load comes on the front side, and if you apply the accelerator, okay, load shift to the rear side, it should take care of that. Provide adequate place for the mountings, okay, there are many mountings are there. Then capacity to steer vehicle, and there should be a isolation between road and passenger. These are the important functions. Today we are going to see the classification of chassis depending upon the engine conditions. They are classified as conventional chassis, semi-forward chassis, fully forward chassis, okay. And depending upon the layout, the front engine, front wheel drive, front engine, rear wheel drive, rear engine, rear wheel drive, and you may have the fourth as all wheel drive, or it is also called the four wheel drive. Now what do you mean by conventional chassis? Okay, if you just remember the previous old vehicles, you will find this engine is completely mounted in front of the driver, you can say, okay, in front of the driver, and driver may not have a proper visibility of road, okay. So that kind of chassis are called as conventional chassis. where driver cannot see as well as that this portion of the chassis is unutilized. Okay, so driver cabin portion can be utilized for the thing, but this front portion, okay, this is the chassis portion, it was unutilized, you can say. The second important thing or drawback of this kind of chassis was the visibility. Still there are few vehicles will find such kind of arrangement, okay, where the engine is completely mounted in front of the driver, okay, and the visibility of driver is very less. If you see this angle, visibility of driver is very less. Now then comes semi-forward chassis, where this portion is reduced, okay, and some portion of the engine comes below the driver and some in front of the driver, you can say. And due to that, the visibility, this is the only portion where the driver can't see, okay, the visibility is somewhat improved. That is what the semi-forward chassis. Still there are few vehicles, and indeed this kind of vehicles was at large, okay. It's called as a semi-forward chassis, you can say. Then comes the fully forward chassis, where this driver is having proper visibility, okay, and very small portion, and the engine is mounted below the driver cabin, you can say. Okay, and driver can see, so that kind of chassis is called as a fully forward chassis. Okay, so layout, according to layout, the chassis classification is front engine, front wheel drive. Okay, where engine is at front and we drive the front wheel only. If you see this arrangement, okay, this is